Good day everyone, my name is Rana Banak. I'm from Group 1 and we are here to report our assigned topic which is utilitarianism. And by the way, these are my co-members.
Good day, sir. I'm Jezebel D. Asukan.
I am Russell C. Ayunan.
I am Sike Marie Badayos.
Hi everyone, I am Mira Florenti Sudan.
I am Riazel Caballero Enslagon.
I am Bea Banyados.
I'm Liza Grace Amin.
Hi, good afternoon. By the way, my name is Karen Vivo Ot.
So, what is utilitarianism? Utilitarianism is part of another framework of morality which is known as the theological or consequentialist theory of morality, the focus of which is not in the doer of the action, but who makes the moral choices, not even on the act itself that carries the decision, but on the consequences of the action. In simple words, utilitarianism is an ethical theory that determines right from wrong by focusing on outcomes. It is a form of consequentialism. It holds that the most ethical choice is the one that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number. It looks into the effect of the action committed. Thus, the morality of the matter lies in the consequences that the action may bring about, whether it is good or evil. If the action has more benefit to more people, in spite of the nature of the action itself, then the choice is considered good. It describes the greatest happiness principle, which is the principle of utility, which means action is the best when produced the greatest happiness for the greatest number, according to Price 2000. For instance, cheating is bad because by nature it is wrong, as dishonesty is wrong as well as being unjust. However, this framework approves this act as good if it is only way to have passing marks in all subjects. As a student would say, it is better to cheat than to repeat. This is the consequentialist ethical system, that is, moral decisions' consequences are more important in determining the goodness or evilness of an act. As an ethical philosophy, utilitarianism holds that the happiness of the majority of the people is the greatest good. For example, vote buying, a political practice that occurred during election period, seems to be apparently good because many people receive instant cash for supporting a candidate. This practice is definitely not good but seemingly become ethically accepted because of many people involved in the process. So these kinds of practice has sanctions. Sanctions are given to person or persons who fail to provide pleasures to other people rather than they become cause or causes of others' pain and suffering. There are 4 types of sanctions. These are physical, political, moral, and religious. Since Bentham views that consequences are more important than motives, then people who inflict pain against another will be sanctioned in spite of their motives.
John Stuart Mill further discusses that pain and pleasures are objectively measurable. Thus, we just rely on our experiences to determine the level of pain and suffering that we can and cannot endure. Mill likewise emphasized that concept of altruism or selflessness, which indicates the utilitarian morality, must recognize that human beings have the power to sacrifice their own pleasures and happiness for the good of others. When you act to attain happiness and pleasures, you are good, then it implies that when you do sacrifices for the sake of others, you are better and you are more moral being.
Origins and nature of the theory. Although utilitarianism has its own origin from and already was implied from the thoughts of Bentham, it was John Stuart Mill who actually coined the term utilitarianism. Mill started by holding that human beings are social by nature, and thus his primary desire is to be united with others, which is considered as good. When we socialize, we make it a point to bring the greatest amount of happiness to people we interact within the society. Then Vaughan states, The action is right if it brings the greatest amount of happiness for the greatest number of people. Then, how is happiness achieved for the greatest number of people? Then Mill considers education. He holds that education has a vital role in the attainment of happiness. Then, according to Mill, education is a means for people to learn skills needed to be productive citizens, and eventually to become effective workers who can promote dignified and healthy living.
There are basically two branches of utilitarianism. They both agree that the goal of ethics is to maximize happiness, but they disagree on where that decision should be applied. The first one is the act utilitarianism. It argues that we should always choose our action based on what will cause the greatest amount of happiness. Example, choosing to help a struggling classmate. Let's say that you have a classmate who is struggling to understand a particular subject. Applying act of utilitarianism, you might choose to spend some extra time outside of class to help them grasp the concept. By doing so, you can contribute to their academic success and well-being, promoting overall happiness among your classmates. The second is the rule utilitarianism, argues that we should figure out what sort of behavior usually causes happiness and turn it into a set of rules. Example, respect for parents. A daughter following a rule of utilitarianism may adhere to the rule of respecting your parents. By showing respect, she fosters a positive and harmonious family environment. This rule considers the well-being of the parents, as it acknowledges the rule of raising and providing for their daughter. By following this rule, the daughter contributes to her parents' happiness, strengthens family's relationship, and creates an atmosphere of love and support.
So, business fascination with utilitarianism. Utilitarianism, due to its moral formulation, has become very relevant and actually one of the most influential moral theories in history, since it seeks for the happiness of the greatest number of people in a society. It became a policy construction in the areas of public service like healthcare, criminal justice, and government. The influence of the principle is likewise observed in business and industry. The actions that both employers and employees perform must always lead towards their greatest happiness. If the employees perform their job well, which results good production, then the employer will enjoy the profit and eventually such will be shared to its employees. This scenario reflects that both of them attain happiness.
There are four aspects of utilitarianism. These are consequentialism, welfarism, individualism, and aggregation. The first aspect is consequentialism. It is an aspect which determines the rightness or wrongness of an action based on the outcomes or results of an action. For example, robbery is good if it is the only means to buy medicines for a sick relative, while giving alms is bad if it makes the person very dependent to it to the point that he would rely on the assistance provided by others. The second aspect of utilitarianism is welfarism. Welfarism is the aspect of utilitarianism which determines the rightness or wrongness of an action based on business operations on society's concept of welfare and well-being. For example, if the employees provides the legal benefits of all his employees, then he is doing the right thing for he seeks the welfare of his employees, which will definitely provide them happiness.
So the third aspect of utilitarianism is the individualism. So it is an explanatory theory that asserts the formation of communities and societies are driven by individual appetites and fears rather than a drive for collectivism. So in utilitarian individualism, the individuals that form a community to meet their needs. or defend against their fears with continued self-interest as their primary goal. So, example is you choose your own style, and the other example is you are not afraid to experiment. So, the fourth aspect of utilitarianism is the aggregation. So, it is a collection of people whom happen to be at the same time, at the same place, but who have no other connection to one another. So, an example here is people gathered in a restaurant in a particular evening. So, are an example of aggregation. So, the other example is shoppers at a mall, drivers on the same road, people standing to buy tickets on a show. That could be all. Thank you.
Utilitarianism is a normative ethics and a traditional stemming from the late 18th and 19th century. English philosopher and economist Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. According to which an action is right, it tends to promote happiness, and if it is wrong, it tends to produce reverse from the happiness. Utilitarianism is different from the ethical theory. John Stuart Mill promoted Bentham's cause of pleasure, pertaining to truth of morality. Mill's ethical ideas focus on utilitarianism. Not only the happiness of the performer of the action, but also that everyone affected by it.
Bentham believes that pleasure and pain are the motivating factors of human behavior, and such all beings act toward attaining pleasure and avoiding pain. The value of pleasure is seen in philosophy of utility known as hedonism. So, hedonism is closely associated with the altruism, where utilitarianism says ethical action are ones that maximize the overall goods of society. Hedonism takes it a step further by defining good as pleasure. Advantage and pleasure. Hedonism holds that pleasure or happiness is the most important goal in life. There are two kinds of hedonism. First, psychological hedonism and ethical. Psychological hedonism states that human actions are motivated by pleasure and pain. It has been exposed by a variety of a distinguished thinker. So, second is ethical hedonism. So, ethical hedonism holds that the only good and that good actions are considered good only if they lead toward the attainment of pleasure, while they are evil if they inflict pain. So this theory places the locus of right and wrong slowly in the outcomes or consequences of choosing one action or policy over the actions or policies. The ethical philosophy is a focus on in which the happiness of the greatest number of people in the society is considered the greatest number. An action is morally right if it is consequences lead to happiness or absence of pain, and wrong if it ends in happiness, unhappiness, or pain. Thank you.